On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your own typical level of impatience? Has it been consistent over time, or does it ebb and flow? Well, for me, my friends often describe me as immensely patient, something that definitely has served me well as an educator, but also can be a fault. I remember most of my own teachers, they seem to view impatience as a personality flaw, a fall from the human ideal, if you will. I was taught, and perhaps you were too, that patience is a virtue, and we should all strive to be patient all the time, or at least as much as we can. But what if our teachers and our parents had it all wrong? What if we are actually hardwired for impatience as a biological construct of survival? It would be silly to expect a 3-month-old to be patient, right? How would they alert caregivers to their needs? And most preschoolers I know of still struggle with patience. So it's a curiosity to me where this notion of patience as a virtue comes from. How do we go from impatient infants to patient people? What exactly is the nature of impatience? My brother definitely played a role in my acquisition of patience, as siblings will often do. One of my favorite memories of our childhood is playing Monopoly with him. He purchased properties with surgical precision, quickly monopolizing the entire boardwalk side and setting up a wall of red hotels to crush my financial existence in as few rounds of the board as possible. In contrast, I bought properties because I liked the color or the name. I usually picked out all the yellow and orange properties first, and I was convinced that Marvin's Gardens was in a Beatles song. I can still hear my brother's intolerant voice of wisdom suggesting impatiently that I would never win by making choices based on my emotions. Truth be told, I don't think he ever realized that I was far more interested in playing with him than I was in beating him. So I tolerated his competitiveness with patience. In the larger world, impatience is both common and frustrating. When I talk to people about their pet peeves, impatient drivers usually tops the list, and that may be true for you as well. Watch children at any school, and it's easy to see how that first grader yelling at another student to hurry up or cutting in line because it's going too slow will likely become that driver who's tailgating, flashing their lights, honking, and passing on the inside. Driving is an action most of us engage in to move from point A to point B as quickly as possible. That makes it a situation ripe for impatience. Anecdotally, it seems like rage of all types is on the rise over the last few years, and recent statistics actually bear this out. Since 2019, there have been dramatic increases in rages like speeding, traffic fatalities, accidents with pedestrians, and airline aggression, just to name a few. Being first is the goal of both road ragers and line ragers, and impatience is usually at the root. But what is impatience? The dictionary defines impatience as a lack of patience. But what if impatience is not a lack of patience, and instead it is the baseline of our behavior? Is patience actually a lack of impatience? It might sound like I'm saying the same thing there, but I'm not. If the typical mindless state of a person is impatience, wanting to get places as quickly as possible, be efficient, don't waste time, get to the front and stay there, then patience, being able to wait or delay achievement of a goal or gratification, and do something purposeful with your mind while you wait, that is a mindful state of action. We are not mindlessly patient and then we lose our patience to become impatient. Instead, we are mindlessly impatient, and we must lose our impatience in order to become patient. It might help to illustrate the building blocks of impatience or patience. Both are rooted in having a goal that is blocked by some obstacle. The obstacle leads to a sense of powerlessness, and our brain is hardwired to take action when we feel powerless. Action taken when we are in a mindless state, not thinking about it, is likely to be impatient and irritated action, while action taken in a mindful state will more likely be patient and calm. It's important to note that the brain does not care what type of action, mindful or mindless, is taken, as long as action occurs. There is no moral judgment within the mind at the time. It is only afterwards when we look back with chagrin at our impatient decisions. As an example, let's say my goal is to prepare dinner as quickly as possible for my family. And I have just gotten the kitchen all set up and I'm starting to cook, and one of my children comes in and asks for homework help just as I start. I might mindlessly respond to this obstacle with irritation and nudge her outside so I can finish cooking in peace. Hey, I'll help you later, no problem. Or I can mindfully respond and think, if we do it now, we'll all be able to relax after dinner. Set her down on a stool next to me. I can help you while I cook. We'll both have our evening free after we eat. Either way, my brain is going to be happy at action being taken. Action is action. And while we're often more satisfied in the long run with actions that are taken mindfully, we're probably going to take action rooted in impatience unless we're in that mindful state. Suddenly, it makes sense why impatient driving is the norm. It is patient drivers who are the rarity, despite what this cartoon illustrates. Instead of having just one lane for the Hyde road ragers and 3 for the Jekyll rule followers, it needs to be flipped. The state of impatience, rather than being a character flaw or a lack of morals, is a biological necessity from birth that we need to grow out of in order to become patient. Brain research shows that without intervention, people spend over half of their waking hours in mindlessness without intervention. It is easy to see how impatience becomes so prevalent. So now when I see someone driving or behaving with impatience in public, getting irritated because someone is counting out their coins at the cash register and taking too long, I now think, if I'm actually in my mindful state, about their likely mindlessness, and I realize it isn't personal to me. Or is it? Being mindful is being a community member, thinking about others, and contributing to the betterment of all. As humans, we are social creatures, and we depend on our social network. So impatient people are, in their mindlessness, being antisocial, and they end up severing the ties that bind us. And that is personal to all of us. The notion of impatience being a hardwired default state of being for people is a paradigm shift. It can have immense effects, ripples throughout our lives, upending our relationships with others and with ourselves for the better. I don't know if you ever get impatient with yourself or expect too much from yourself, but I want you to know you are not alone. It is one of my biggest struggles, and it came into clear focus earlier this year when I first was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. At first, I blamed myself for this diagnosis. How could I let this happen to me? What did I do wrong? I knew I needed to deal with stress better. And then I became ridiculously impatient with the time that it was taking for my neurological symptoms, numbness, fatigue, imbalance, and stiffness, to get better. My goal was a cure, and it was blocked by the normal biological processes of healing. Slowly, I realized that it took years for this disease to develop and the symptoms to be recognized for what they were. And it will likely take years to heal. Not to mention that the stress of my impatience would only serve to slow healing down further. Thankfully, I am healing very quickly, actually. And I think part of it is because I finally recognized my impatience and I was able to slow down and be more mindful. And that brought me back to my own capacity for tolerance and healing. Of course, as a teacher, I automatically think about how can we apply this to our children and the work that we do in schools. How can we help children learn patience? Some common sources of impatience for children include waiting, being frustrated with not getting what they want, wanting limited resources, trying to get attention. They're all examples of having a goal blocked by an obstacle, and usually it's competition with others for attention, time, and resources. When we see such evidence of impatience in school settings, we need to look to see if the source is necessary competition that helps grow neurons or muscles or relationships, or if it's an unnecessary source of competition. If it's unnecessary, I try and seek simple ways to eliminate it. For example, with lines, I no longer let students line up willy-nilly. I assign a line order and we switch it up every week or two. It's drastically reduced the amount of racing, cutting, and impatience, and lots less learning time lost to the conflicts that used to ensue. When I want to hear students' ideas, I no longer call on raised hands because it just encourages students to compete, to be first, the ones who are like crawling out of their seats trying to get called on. Or they will avoid participating by not raising their hands at all. So now I use a random name generator like Names on Sticks or an app on my phone. But before one student talks to anyone, all of them talk to a partner first, so everyone's voice and idea is heard. A final example, if there's a coveted item, a seat, a new book the librarian offered, or a fidget everyone wants to try, instead of having students compete and racing to be first, we make a rotating schedule so everyone gets a chance with fairness. But in all honesty, it cannot stop there with just the mere removal of sources of impatience, because without intervention and instruction, children's actions will likely remain mindless into their adulthood, as our current rash of social impatience shows us. The journey from impatient infant to patient adult is not automatic. The recent focus on mindfulness in schools is encouraging because becoming patient is about metacognition, or thinking about our thinking. That is where we change neurons and we shift mindless impatience to mindful consideration. As an example, if students came into my class and they're grouchy and irritable after lunch, first I would notice what was going on. I'd say, I can't talk to them right now. I need them to get into a better place. So I'd settle them down by reading out loud, or maybe I would put them to work on an engaging task they were excited about. After I felt the energy shift, I might say, I noticed a number of you seemed really impatient after lunch. I'm just curious, what happened to you? And then we would talk about it, unveil the mindlessness, the goal that got blocked, and the obstacle. And in this way, small moment by small moment, we can teach children how to be patient, how to be mindful. Because patience isn't inborn, it's practiced. Before you think that I'm talking about everyone getting a trophy or every child getting an A, there are a lot of examples and reasons for healthy competition that does grow neurons and muscles and relationships. We all need to manage disappointment and frustration from losing, as well as the excitement and rush that comes from competing and winning. So we need to let our students experience this and then help them with those feelings. Team events like Jeopardy game, a tug of war, or relay events. Competition with self like bettering a skills test score or being able to do more push-ups. And then entering contests in areas of skill or interest like athletics, art, writing, chess, coding, etc. Everyone can't be first, but everyone can be their own best. And our world desperately needs more people not afraid to operate at their highest level, no matter what their highest is. Now, I know not everyone works in schools, but everyone has a role to play in increasing mindfulness because environments can be powerful triggers for the type of action we take. We are talking about the environments in our own minds, our homes, our places of work, and our communities. Can we, as participants in and creators of these environments, build in triggers that expand others' capacity for mindfulness? That is the big ticket question. And the answer lies in more closely examining situations that tend to foster mindlessness or impatience. As with children in schools, adults are triggered by any situation that causes delay or a sense of powerlessness or a blockage of an obstacle, and that can be impatience. I hope that we can think more about how we might unknowingly create situations that encourage mindlessness and are likely to trigger impatience by placing obstacles in front of goals. So when we design roads, housing developments, or hallway layouts, maybe we need to ask the question, how does this foster mindless impatience? Because it seems like we default in our planning to that ideal person that our parents and teachers advocated for us to be. That patient, mindful one who follows rules and signs, thinks about others, and uses traffic jams as an opportunity to practice breathing. Maybe we need to consider that mindless impatience is the norm, and design for this human instead of the patient rule-following ideal. For example, in areas of town where residents keep requisitioning traffic calming measures like that light that keeps flashing telling you how fast you're going, what is it about the layout and design of that intersection or road area that fosters impatient driving? In our own homes, have we designed the entryway to foster mindfully placing shoes and coats where they belong? Or do they end up in a jumble on the floor in the way of everybody? As parents or guardians, are we helping our children to see other sides to situations when they get frustrated with peers, growing their mindfulness and social skills in the process? And if we work with people in any capacity, can we work to understand the type of situations that lead to impatience and mindlessness and develop strategies to help reroute people? While I don't have answers to these environmental design questions yet, I have learned that connecting with others who seem to be struggling with impatience can bring people back to their minds. It's as simple as noticing and saying, "Hey, sounds like it's been a frustrating day for you. How can I help?" The truth is, when we can see each other as fellow human beings, it's a lot harder to be impatient or mindless. It is a journey to move from impatient infant to patient person, and we will all have our impatient moments, for we are human after all. But the more we can be mindful and patient, the better off we are. Patience is a gift to ourselves, to others, and to our communities. It takes me back to the conundrum of games like Monopoly, where the whole goal is to win with an unbridled enthusiasm for obliterating your opponent. Did I fail to enjoy winning and competing because, as the younger sister of my brother, winning just wasn't in the cards for me? Or was I uninterested from the beginning? I'm still not sure. I do know there's a place for patience and impatience in all of our lives, and perhaps knowing the mindful difference is the key in making that choice. To this day, my brother remains one of my favorite people on this planet, and we both enjoy playing a game of hearts where I usually lose and he invariably finds glee in attempting to shoot the moon. Without a doubt, he has accomplished a lot in his life and profession, and his impatient competitive streak has served him well in that. As for me, my patient nature has worked well in my life and career, especially when faced with an individual task to accomplish. Give me a 4,000-mile bicycle tour across the country, a book or two to write, or a health challenge to heal, and I am going to be in it to win it. And with that, I wish you mindful patience in whatever your life brings you.